My name is Kapil Sharma. Started my career long time back in India. Then was fortunate to join DreamWorks, stayed there for 9 years in Bangalore division, of course. Then moved to Animalogic for a while and then DNEG. And was fortunate to do animation direction for Intergalactic and then now working on a new project.
How did you start your career in animation?
So since childhood I could draw and I could do, I was quite fascinated by animation, and then in India we used to get 2 art channels for Disney, just Disney programs. So I kind of knew that I wanted to do something in the same lines to, get into this. I just had no idea in India they were doing something like that. But then when I grew up, I wasn't good at studies at all. But it just so happened that I did find out that, they do it. So I got the opportunity to work as a layout artist for a studio and then slowly moved to it. But yeah, it was never a change. Quite early in age, I kind of knew that I wanted to be in something similar to this, which is, wasn't sure if it was going to be just animation, but yeah, something which is going to be with sketching and, art side.
Ron's Gone Wrong was the first feature film for DNEG Animation. What were the challenges in moving from VFX to feature animation?
For us, the biggest challenge was pipeline, because VFX pipeline were completely different than how we do it. Our requirements are completely different as well. Then the other part was, of course, the artist as well. So, I do believe that if you're a good animator, you can just animate anything. It doesn't matter if it's VFX or if it's feature. At the same time, you do need to have like a certain, like if I have to animate on a VFX show, which I actually did few shots on Venom, and those were hard. Those were pretty hard. So I guess the biggest challenge was really just to build a team who understand how the production goes for feature animation, who also kind of understand how the overall pipeline work. And it's really just a relationship with director, with the way you make movies is quite different than how VFX does. DNEG, they had really good artists from VFX, of course, but they were still kind enough to bring, all this talent from Pixar. They got talent from DreamWorks, like myself and some of my friends as well, like all over the world, where they could find somebody who has been in the industry, who have made movies and, can actually bring all that with them to the studio. So they spent good. Like I think even when we started Ron's Gone Wrong, we still had like a good year really just to build how to make this movie and get the team together. I believe by the end of Ron's Gone Wrong is when we were quite solid, when we had enough talent, we had the right people around it. But yeah, I would say pipeline, really understanding how to deal with different situations in feature versus VFX was the biggest jump for DNEG as well. But the good thing is they were dedicated. So it's not that they're just like, we'll just use whatever it is. They still went in, they spend enough energy and time to, just build a feature animation, brought anyone they could. So it was pretty interesting. But yeah, those was few challenges.
What is the difference between animating for VFX and for feature animation?
So to be honest, I actually never was into VFX. Because my career kind of grew through DreamWorks mostly, so I was always a feature animation guy. I did try, I think it was Venom, when I did try doing like few shots, and I struggled. It's not that I didn't know the physics of it and how the character move and all those things. It just, the things you require for VFX was completely different. It really has to be quite, not just realistic, but it really needs to have motion, which is completely different than how we go. Because we generally push things, we go beyond realistic, we just really want stylized stuff for us. So I totally see. I can do it if I work on a full project, but it always required to reset your brain. Like, okay, this is not how we go. In anime, there's a style called sakuga. I'm a huge fan of it. And what sakuga is, it's straight ahead. You just go draw, you go. And while doing Venom, I kind of realized VFX is a little bit like that. Because in anime we tend to go like, pose by pose and really understanding what the storytelling poses are and things like those. Whereas VFX it goes how you normally is. So they generally go with more straight ahead, just animating and really get the feel out of it. We got some really good talent at DNEG. I had a chance to talk to. And it's just the whole working style, their understanding of actual physics and all of that was great. And I think where we kind of differ is because in feature animation you go more performance side, because you really want to spend time in really the performance, the acting of the character, and really get into it. So the thought process gets quite different if you just think of it. I mean, principles are same, it's just the way you would use it is a bit different on that.
In Ron's Gone Wrong, how were Ron's expressions created to make him playful, glitchy, and different from other B-bots?
Very, very close friend of mine, Steven Meyer, who was a former DreamWorks animator. So he was a lead on Ron, the bot. Initially we all were testing, and JP, the director, was quite clear that, oh, Ron is going to have glitches and things like that. But it's really Steve did few initial tests where he kind of figured out that pixelation can move around. So he really just went and created this test where it's just from simple eyes to it becomes a hammer, it becomes something else. And kind of that was the first kind of test on Ron, which we showed it to the director, and they were like, oh shit, that's look good. And then Steve was the one who kind of figured out we wanted like a bit abstract glitching. And the thing with Ron was we wanted to start him super broken. So when the movie started, he's broken. But by the end of it, we wanted him to be, oh, he learned a bit. So glitching was less, the expressions were better, the way he was acting was a bit better. So huge credit actually goes to Steve. And the great thing is because me and Steve were really good friends, and I was taking care of Barney, the kid in the movie, so I was leading him. And the whole story is about Barney and Ron. So because we both were friends, most of the sequences, whenever we really, talk to each other how this relationship would go. And Steve would give really good guidelines in terms of, oh, this would be a right moment to have like a glitch in there. This would be the right moment to just have something. Or, of course, JP, director, also had like really good thoughts about like, oh, that's where you can drop it, increase his glitching and things like that. So Steve was main, and then the other person I would like to say is Toba, who was a rigger. She was at actually SIGGRAPH as well this year, and she was the main one who kind of really helped us with rigging. We needed a rig which is simple, but at the same time can provide like any glitch, anything we wanted, and it was surprised to know how hard it is to get like a thing which works really, really nicely and simply, but to achieve it, you really have to go deep. So we spent a lot of time initially with Toba, myself, Steve, really just testing the rig, and Steve provided he knew really well what expression he wanted to achieve, so that back and forth really worked out. So yeah, huge kudos goes to those two guys, and of course I was fortunate to work with them, so I kind of worked. Most of the work I did on Ron's Gone Wrong was Barney and Ron together, like their friendship. My team was pretty much taking care of that side.
How do you approach animating a character to show their personality?
I think that all really has to come from the dev side of it. What generally happens, and it's same with any other movie, you get a character, you get a launch from the director saying, this is what this character is, this is his arc in the movie, these are the ups and downs, and these are the personality traits. And we kind of knew, okay, Barney is a shy kid, he's not really a loner, it's just he's feeling it hard to fit in, and main reason he's feeling it hard to fit in is not because he doesn't know how to fit in, it's just all other kids have this bot and he doesn't. It's kind of, all the kids have iPhone, but just one kid doesn't. So that was good enough for us to, just like, okay, we get it, this means. One thing we really wanted to stay away from is that he shouldn't come off as like this whiny kid. You still wanted to make him likable, right? So on that basis, then I sat with JP, and JP gave like a really strong, references about, oh, we can watch Stand By Me. The main kid in Stand By Me was a great reference for Barney. And slowly by slowly, we kind of collected all the ref. While we were doing that, we really worked together with another animator called Tim Watts. He was like a drawer guy because he did a bunch of character design also for Ron's Gone Wrong. And what it was like, then I would work with rigging, then I'll do the whole facial calisthenics, then I'll sit with Tim, then we'll do drawer back and forth, then I'll show it to JP, then he'll have his thoughts. So while we're figuring out what this character is, I'm also building all his facial, like how he would look like. Because you need to be really consistent as well, and I really didn't want the animators to, pose it by themselves. So having a character library was quite important. Once we kind of knew, okay, this is what it is, then we did a bunch of tests with him, which were just exploring his personality, and they were without dialogue, without anything. But those tests really start showing like, okay, how this character would be and what it is. Where we got more success, I feel like, is of course Ramon, who was my character lead on Intergalactic as well. He was the one who did that walk of Jabari, what you saw. And he was the one who did the walk of Barney as well, which was based on, of course, the kid on Stand By Me. But then he got something in it which right away showed like, yes, that's our Barney. And once we had that, then it just then we did. I think with my team, it was myself, Ramon, Laura Lucen, another. She's my lead now, and she was the lead on Meadow Entergalactic as well. Pochin, one animator, he's in Vancouver now. Estelle, who's still with us, super talented animator, and George. So I had this team. They stuck with me throughout the production, and we were basically doing most of Barney and Ron stuff. And so Laura did a bunch of shots with Barney where first time we could see, oh, like she did something with his eyes where right away you could like, oh, I can feel this character, he's not anywhere. So it was a very gradual process. It took us about 6 months and at least 3 sequences before we kind of knew, what this character is and how to handle them. And then we really wanted to be consistent, but it just, I had a small team, so we can only do some sequences. So we kind of end up taking care of all the ones when Ron and Barney are together, because my team could handle Barney really well, and then working with Steve, it was much easier for us to really handle Ron as well. Steve trusted us with Ron, so he could give us note, and then we can really do it. So that process was quite, and it's same with every movie. Like even on Intergalactic, Fletch was extremely clear what he wanted this character to be, and of course it's pretty much image of Kid Cudi, but we didn't want it to be rotoscopic or exactly like him. We just wanted to get the feel of it. Like you need to feel like it. And again, Ramon took it. We did experiment with step animation. So if you watch his walk, it's actually not just on 2s. It's like on 2s and 3s, then 2s again, then 3s again. But what he ended up getting is just the rhythm of it, the way the character is moving, and you see it works pretty well. And walks are the great way to find what the character is. And once you have it, then you do a bunch of other tests just to see how this character would move, how he would sit if he has to sit. So like even the movie right now, we're doing these tests, how the characters would be in a classroom, but really exploring their personality, just not doing the same thing with everyone, right? So I quite enjoyed that process of it, and it was really, Ron was a great experience because we were still building a team. By the time I actually got my guys like Ramon and Laura, we already had done 1 sequences. So I knew a lot about what Barney was. I knew a lot about actually what Ron was as well, because I worked quite closely with Steve. But when these guys came, that's when it really started coming together. Because I had somebody I could say and they could really produce exactly, because I had 0 time. But on Intergalactic, we were much faster because right away I had the right team. We did the whole thing in like 3 months or so. But it was really successful because every time we showed something, it was always just productive rather than, oh, it's not it, let's figure out something new. And the current movie is same. So these are the process where you really spend time with the director, really understanding what the character is and find some reference for it. But then we really have to explore its own thing.
How do you manage to animate on 2s, 3s and even in 60s while still getting the right performance?
I mean, it will still come off a bit chunky. One of the hope we had is when the movie starts, you might feel just a bit stubby, but your eyes would adjust to it and then you're just into the character. Something Fletcher, director, was really like adamant about it, just the personality, the acting, the performance has to be right. And as I was saying in my talk as well, the thing is about performances, it had to be really naturalistic, really real with the culture we were trying to represent. All of that was quite important. But I really didn't want it a very formulated just on 2s or just on 3s or just on, like, because that's most of the step animation sometimes come across. It would have been much easier for CFX and other department. But because when you look at the painting, and one of the things was we really just wanted to be inside the painterly look, being in the painting. I really felt like, okay, so if character is just sitting and just doing nothing, then we can just leave him like that. I was quite lucky to have Ramon much earlier on the show, but he's really good rigger as well, despite being amazing animator. So then I, like myself, him, and Toba, who was a rigger, we sat together. We kind of deconstructed the whole face. Actually, I forgot Stina surname. She's another animator who's still with. She moved from animation though, but she's still with DNEG, and she's great character design. So she quite helped us to deconstruct the design as well. So then three of us with rigging team, we figured out that okay, face would work. But that was really just, I did a test with BMX bike, then Ramon did the test, the walk, another one, where we really started doing experiments. It's like, okay, how far can we push? So, you know, one of the tests I showed yesterday when he becomes slow-mo while falling on the couch, that's on force, and that was purely just to see, is it gonna be too strawberry, or is it gonna work out or not work out? Then there's few shots where he just doesn't move for like 12 frames. But it fits in. But when he moves, we really wanted to make sure it's right so that it doesn't feel like, you just come out of something. So that balance was mostly dictated by what we wanted in the shot and what emotion you're trying to, you know, convey. And it was never like, oh, we animated in spline and then just converted in twos, because that very quickly started just giving this very CG feel to it, which we just wanted to stay away from. Well, few action shots we went on twos and ones as well, so you know it's all really balanced. But it took a while to really get used to it, at least for our new animators who were coming on show. I was extremely lucky to have super strong team in London, which is my 6 animators. If you don't mind, I really want to name them, which is Ramon, Estelle, Laura, Anna, and Sam, and Aziz. And these 6-7 guys just really took off. They really understood what it was, and then I could use this team to really guide my Montreal team, my Mumbai team to how the whole thing would work. So we did the whole movie like 3 different sites, but we were still quite consistent. It's just because the talent I had was just amazing, and they were really good at just keeping it together.
In Intergalactic, did the animation team take care of the 2D effects?
Well, no. So 2D drawn effects were done by, we hired a 2D animator, legendary one. But what we end up doing I end up doing a lot of blur frames, like at least around like 12-15 shots in the movie, which we had figured out how to do a calculated blur. So that was good. Like the compositor was really good at just, you know, getting that out. But then there's few shots you really wanted artistic blurs, and I went for very abstract ones. So those are the ones which I end up doing it. Initially we did some tests, like Ramon did some really good tests with 2D stuff. We kind of wanted to do it, but you know, time got crunched, so we just didn't have time. So no, we for FX we had to hire a really good 2D animator.
What's in the future of animation? Any technology or trend you would like to see?
Well, so first thing, I think that animation is finally moving away from just being a genre to a medium to show movie. So it's no more just animated movie for kids or something. And I can clearly see, even I was just in a presentation with Puss in Boots as well, like I can clearly see that now we're moving away for like, oh, this is not just for kids, it's for everyone, whoever wants to watch it. And it's just a medium you can tell story. That's great. The other thing I feel which is coming back is, because I think industry went a bit from people who could do everything to you really being specialized on doing things. So I kind of grew just really concentrating on animation, and that's what my specialization became. But now I think the journalists, the people who can kind of do everything but really know pretty good about one thing is coming back. And I'm quite excited because, you know, technical wise, you got so many softwares now which are specific to what you want to achieve. As we were saying, we end up using everything made. Like we use Blender initially just to test how things would work. And I was amazed how many things are out there you can just use, and even to test, even if it's not going to be in your final thing. So I'm actually quite excited right now at this time. Just seeing the kind of projects you're getting, the kind of technology, more than technology, I would say it's just the creative ideas out of the box thing, where it might be the same technology, but how we are using it, how we are manipulating it is completely different. So the demand of just getting this crazy abstract, artistic thing is amazing. It's something which really excites me actually.
Anything you can share about DNEG Animation's upcoming production, Nimona?
Well, so I didn't work on Nimona fully. I did work on it just for a few months though, but I kept getting Ted T, who's our head of animation at DNEG. He's the animation director on Nimona, and the great thing about Nimona is just it's a passion project, if I would say it. Anyone on it just really poured their heart to it. And it also did another thing. Ted T kind of built a really, really great team in Montreal. And the kind of talent he got is crazy, man. Like, I'm jealous of a lot of those animators. They're so good. And Ted is just so good at just running the team and making them together. So when I was on Nimona, what really inspired me just how everybody literally went for it. They just pour their heart to it. The kind of, once the movies come out, I hope people can see it's really a passion project of people who just, they didn't care like what they're getting out of it or nothing. It's just they wanted to be on it. They really wanted to make sure that it looks great. Animators stayed till 2 in the night just to, they made sure every shot looks great. Didn't matter how crunched the time was, didn't matter how many notes you're getting. So Nimona is gonna be a passion project. And then how stylized it is great. I mean, Blue Sky had already done quite a work for it. But we had to build everything from not from zero, but pretty much from the ground level. And then even the style kind of changed just a tiny bit, which for good. So yeah, I wish I could say more about Nimona, but that's mainly gonna be Ted who should talk about it. But Nimona is purely a passion project. It's just anyone who was on Nimona just really went for it. They pour their heart. It's a dream kind of team sometimes you can have it because everybody was stressed, but everybody just loved each other and really loved being on a project. So yeah, Nimona. Yeah, I'm actually excited once the trailer come out, people can see what we end up doing it. Like, yeah, we really end up building something nice on that.
What is your personal definition of animation?
Oh man, that's a hard one actually. Because when I started the industry, it did started with just motion. Like, oh, that's what it is. You can move your drawings, and I was huge into comics, and I could do comics and all. But now, as I was saying, animation is really a medium to tell stories. And the great part about animation is you can really tell freaking amazing stories. Intergalactic itself, when you just read the script on the paper, it just sounds like a movie which should be in live action. But when Fletch kind of pitched it us and when we saw it, it has to be animated. So I find this is a medium which can let all of our artists quite free. Also, I can be just alone and do a good short film with animation, like, tell a small story really quickly and all. So I find it's a great medium to be able to tell the kind of stories we want to tell. And being an animator, I think it becomes quite interesting because just getting into those characters, like we are basically actors, but not on the camera, but behind the camera. So just for the motion side, it becomes really, really good because then you get into performance. Like some of my Laura Luzon, who's one of my lead animator, when she does her references for shoot, you should see it. It's just she should have been an actress somewhere. She's so on point. So my take on animation is yes, it's an amazing media to be able to tell stories which you cannot find in the real world. It's inspired from the real world, but it really allows you to go beyond anything, and you can just tell simple things, but you can really put all the emotion, sometimes just with color, sometimes just with motion, but it doesn't really matter. It's a medium which is very fascinating, and it's a medium which it's been almost 100 years it's been there, and it's constantly growing. So that's something which is even more exciting. It's just, it never gets old. Every decade or so, there's some new wave kind of comes, and right now we are living through those waves. Like most of the projects are stylized, and the style is not just for the sake of it. Like Intergalactic as well, everything we did was not like, oh, it look hip or anything. That was chosen because it really served the story the best way. And that's what it is. So yeah, my take on animation is it's a beautiful medium, and we should all use it a lot to tell stories, not just for kids, but for everyone, I would say.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, mate. Thank you so much, Fabio, for doing it.